toward the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty. The only being united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of God. I would like to read something from HIK titled The Inner Purpose of Life. And I will make some comments as we intersperse throughout his text. As deeply as the purpose of life can be traced, there seems to be one ultimate purpose working through all planes of life, showing itself through all planes of existence. That is as if the knower, with his knowing faculty, has been in darkness, desiring to know something. And in order to know something, he created all things. This sentence by HIK is very similar to a Hadith Qudsi given through the Prophet Muhammad, where it says, I was a hidden treasure, loved to be known. So I created the creatures, and they knew me. And recently, I was looking at a book called The Immense World, and it was talking about all these different ways of perception and knowing. And the human species has its own way of knowing, but all these other species have as well. And that reminded me, and we may not even be aware of these other species or their knowing. And that reminded me of a saying by Muhyiddin Ibn Arabi, where he said, each existent thing glorifies God in its own modality. So we would like to think that we're perhaps the only ones who know God. We exist in this world of knowing with many other beings, each knowing in their own way something of reality and glorifying their existence within it. HIK then says, again, it is the desire of the Creator that has been the power which created. And two, it is the materialized substance of the Spirit, a part of himself, that has been tuned into a creation. Yet leaving the Creator behind as the absolute Spirit, constantly knowing, experiencing life through all different channels, some developed, some undeveloped for the purpose. And this reminds me of a zikr, which we'll do a little bit later, of a Kurdian Iraqi, La ilaha illa ishq. I'll explain that a little bit when we get to it. HIK goes on to say there are 5 aspects which give one the tendency toward the accomplishment of the inner purpose. The first tendency is the desire to live. The second is the desire to know. The third is desire for power. The fourth is desire for happiness. And the fifth is desire for peace. This document will be online later, so you don't have to necessarily take notes. These 5 things work consciously or unconsciously in the profound depth of every soul. Working within one, they prompt one either to do right or to do wrong. Yet these 5 aspects belong to the one purpose, in the accomplishment of which the purpose of the whole creation is fulfilled. When the desire to live brings one in touch with one's real life, a life which is not subject to death, then the purpose of that desire is accomplished. My comment on that would be that from a mystical perspective, one's real life subsists in the unveiled and absolute reality. So we have all these veils upon us. And the Nikon talks in The Soul Wins the Wither of how we traverse through all these different planes of existence. And by the time we get to Earth, we are veiled with all these different planes. And when we add to that the biological and psychological genetic predisposition of our forebears, we begin to lose a sense of reality in its pristine glory. And we learn life as it actually is here on Earth until we decide, for whatever reason, to listen to a call within and to begin the unveiling process. Icon adds on, when one has been able to perceive fully the knowledge of one's own being, in which is to be found divine knowledge, the mystery of the whole manifestation, and the mystery of the whole manifestation, then the purpose of knowledge is attained. This, when you're talking about one's real life and perceiving and knowing one's being, one's own being, he's not necessarily talking about the psychological aspects of your existence here as a human, but he's talking about something deeper within you. It's something that is rooted in reality, not in reality, capital R, not necessarily rooted in time and space. It's something different than you would normally think of yourself. Something that either is born or dies. And this is, again, going back to a hadith of the Prophet, know thyself and know thy Lord. Icon continues. When one is able to get in touch with the almighty power, the desire for power is achieved. Well, that desire for power in its pristine state is the desire of the divinity to know its power. But we, to obtain any glimpse of it, need to give up our sense of personal power and give it over to a wiser entity to guide us and to help us in life. Nikon continues. When one has been able to find one's happiness in one's own heart, independent of all things outside, the purpose of the desire for happiness is fulfilled. My comment on this would be that when one opens up to the true nature of the heart, the density of life dissipates. And in that state, one experiences a joy. And an icon continues. When one is able to rise above all condition and influences, which disturb the peace of the soul, and has found one's peace in the midst of the crowd and away from the world, in him the desire for peace is satisfied. And again, I would say that when one opens up to the true nature of the heart, one enters into a state we could call freedom. It's free from the stimulation from the outside world. And it gives us a sense of peace, freedom, and the ability to act. It is not in one of the, and icon says that it's not in one of or the other of these five desires that there's the accomplishment of the purpose. It's in the fulfillment of all these five desires. And one's purpose is accomplished. The purpose for which every soul was born on earth. I would like to say that if we look at those who are in the class today, the one thing that we notice is that every face is different. And this speaks to that each of us has a unique signature to our soul. So each of us has a unique, not only does every existent thing have a unique way of knowing, but each of us has a unique way as well. So our experiences of these different states that an icon is talking about will necessarily be unique. They will not, we can share them and there will be some sense of common understanding, but our deepest realization of them will be a realization that only we could have. And that is one of the purposes for our existence. I want to go back to first the sikr I talked about. I think we've done it before in a prior class. La ilaha illa il ishq. It basically means there is no God, there is only ishq. But ishq is that desire that Anayakan is talking about. He says again, it's the desire of the Creator that has been the power which created. And this is the ishq in that Hadith Qudsi, I was a hidden treasure and love to be known. Ishq, to be known. So ishq is a love, a movement toward fulfillment of being, and a movement toward fulfillment of the divine intent through you, as you. So just for a moment, close our eyes and watch our breath. As we watch our breath, we can have a sense of it. And once we have a sense of it, we can also sense it shifting. It begins under the radiance of our presence to drop the heavy impressions of the day. And as a consequence, it becomes finer and less dense, light in terms of both density, but also radiance. And when we arrive at that sense of radiant breath, we're aware of very fine vibrations within the breath. And this is the breath where Naikansa's breath is life, and that's these vibrations and light. Then we cast this breath upon Latifa Surya, which is behind the sternum, midway in the chest, center of the chest. And at first it's a neuroplexy. At first you may not exactly know where it's located, but as you use your breath, you can also use your imagination. Enter into the imaginal realm, and you might have a feeling like a certain place calls to you. And when you breathe on it, with this breath of life and light, it begins to emerge out of the imaginal realm into the sensory. And you continue to breathe on it, arresting it with the breath. And the ancient ones liken this the blowing on the ember of the heart. And as you do, that area begins to have a sense of warmth, softening. The warmth is radiant discharge, discharging the impressions that fall on the mirror of the heart from this day. Softening is subjective experience of space. Like when a knot has more space, you could say it becomes a softer. So when the impressions leave, they leave space where they were. And you can now breathe into that space, penetrate it on the in breath and release more fully on the out breath. And that space unfurls all directions. It goes beyond the skin. It traverses the physical body, but it's not of it. It goes beyond time and space. The vast, boundless space of the heart. And it's in this space that we'll place these sounds, these sacred sounds. La, la, il, il, ish. Taste. Tasting means be present. And what is present in your heart, what presence emerges in your heart is a response to your call. La, ilah, il, il, ish. 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 La, ilah, il, il, La, la, il, ish. Last time. La, ila, il, il, ish. Drink. Sharp, it means to allow, which is what is present in your heart, to permeate your being. I mean, and I would like to briefly lead us into recitation of divine names that attend to the five desires that an icon outlined. The first being the desire to live. The desire to live is the desire to subsist within that which is truly alive. We will say Yahai. Again, pause and taste. Yahai. 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 Yah. Yahai. Last. Now drink. Allow that which is present to permeate your being. Notice your breath. Ami. And then there's the desire to know. And we'll recite Ya Alim. Ya Alim. Ya Alim. Ya Alim. Ya Alim. Ya Alim. Ya Ali. Last time. Ya Ali. Allow its presence to permeate your being. Be aware of your breath. The Sufis say that the knowing of God is not through the brain per se, but it's through the heart. It's a direct experience. So it's not like a computer readout. It's more like a sensation, a notion, an experience, a state. And then there's the desire for power. At first blush, it would seem like we want power over the outer world so we can be able to conform to our desires. But actually, it's a giving up of our personal sense of power to find a higher power to serve. And the word we'll use is God. Yeah, God. Yeah, God. Yeah, God. Yeah, God. Yeah, God. Yeah, God. Last. Yeah, God. Allow that which is present in your heart permeate your being. Be aware of your breath. And then there's the desire for happiness. When one opens the heart, one can experience a deep joy. A word we're going to use you may have never used before. Sa'ada. S-A-'A-D-A. A-D-A, Sa'ada, which means joy, happiness. It's an attribute of the divine. Ya Sa'ada. Ya Sa'ada. Ya Sa'ada. Ya Ya Sa'ada. Ya Sa'ada. Last time. Ya Sa'ada. Allow that which is present in your heart to permeate your being. Be aware of your breath. I mean, number 5, he underscored the desire for peace. Ya Salim. Peace is the state one experiences in the depth of the boundless heart. Let's place this sound there as well. Ya Salim. Ya Salim. Ya Salim. Ya Salim. Ya Salim. chest. Yeah, so allow that which is present in your heart to permeate your being. And be aware of your breath. This is now the second half of our class is Sobat. Chance for you to make comments or ask questions, to engage more thoughtfully in the class. I'll ask a question. So I asked you to be aware of your breath after each recitation. Was it the same breath? So that was a question. So either it was the same breath or it wasn't the same breath. What say thou, Tarana?
So, when I switched from Yahai to the next one, I noticed that they were different. Like there was like something going on in my heart, like some work being done. And
So you felt a different state.
yeah, and I mean I got the Yahai got me really interested because I could see something happening to an inner vision, and it was numinous and luminous, and it had a feel of water, but it was like a cloud of light.
Okay,
That was the most noticeable one.
thank you. So my question still stands about the breath. Was the breath always the same, or did the breath change? And if it changed, in what way? Adi.
It's like
Adi.
I forget. Yeah, it's like I forget every time how to work the hand raised. Um, the breath does change for me. I start to see and feel the swing, the rhythm. Then the vibrations get very intense in either the arc in my nasal cavity or somewhere back there. I just feel a intense vibration, and then I send it down that vibration down into my heart, and then that vibrates. So that's what I experience in the process of the changing in my breath.
Yeah, thank you. Ibn Arabi once said, every bite in the apple has a different taste, even though it's the same apple. Ananda?
Thank you. Um, in general, I noticed that my breath did change over the course of the practice, and in general, just became more refined, finer.
Okay, thank you. Dahlia, Surya.
Uh, I I was surprised to notice changes in my breath, and seemed to me that as you talked about imaginal, it felt very much like it was connected to thinking about the different qualities that we were focusing on, and then the actual word as I spoke, the wasifa, the name, the divine name, I could feel definite shifts, and I don't remember exactly what they, but each one was a little different, and that was surprising to me and lovely.
Thank you. Yes, if we become more observant of our breath, we can notice that, and we may not be able to put words to it, but we can notice, as you just said, that there can be a different vibration, and each of the divine names has a unique vibration. It's its signature vibration. And interestingly, also, we feel it in the heart at the same time we experience it in the breath. And we can experience, if we're trying to find one specific thing, we could be fooled because, as I just quoted, each bite has a different taste. Well, even as you're reciting one word, each utterance, and then pause and tasting can be quite different than the one time you uttered it just before. So you can go through several different states that are all attributes or aspects of this particular attribute. It makes it a richer experience. And even though you may not be able to describe it in a word or two or 10, Fatima?
I didn't notice so much my breath, but I noticed a change in the heart area. It was a different experience for each one of these. Some were more lively and some were more expansive and some were just softer.
Yeah, thank you. And you may want to, on your own, practice them and see if they continue to grow in different ways. Ananda?
Yes, thank you. When I was studying the Raphaelite work with Davy, she talked about states that we have we don't really have language for, that we have states that in our English vocabulary there are no words that map to those states. And as you were speaking, Hamayat, about um, as we recite and taste, where we can go through different aspects of the same quality. I was thinking, the thought came to me that um, we talk about, when people talk about language, they talk about, for example, they use the word snow as an example of, in our culture, we just have one word for it. But in the Inuit culture, they have, I don't know, a few dozen different words for snow. So anyway, that was the thought that came to mind.
Thank you. Salima. I can't hear you, Salima.
As per usual, I have a hard time feeling anything while I'm doing the practice. But over time, I start to notice changes. And what I noticed tonight was a sense of vulnerability and warmth. And it's very real to me. So that's where it went.
Oh, thank you. Well, that certainly was a felt shift, Salima.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about the different experiences of the recitations. What about the words of an icon? Did anything strike you there? Let me read it again. Not the whole thing, but
What's
as deeply as the purpose of life can be traced, there seems to be one ultimate purpose, working through all planes of life, showing itself through all planes of existence. That is, as if the knower with his knowing faculty has been in darkness, desiring to know something. And in order to know something, he created all things. Again, it is the desire of the Creator that has been the power which created. That desire is Ishq. And two, it is the materialized substance of the Spirit, the materialized substance of the Spirit, a part of himself that has been turned into a creation, leaving the Creator behind as the absolute Spirit, constantly knowing, experiencing life for all different channels, some developed, some undeveloped for the purpose. There are 5 aspects which give one the tendency toward the accomplishment of the inner desire to live, desire to know, desire for power, desire for happiness, desire for peace. These 5 things work consciously or unconsciously in the profound depth of every soul. Working within one, they prompt one either to do right or to do wrong. Yet these 5 aspects belong to the one purpose, in the accomplishment of which the purpose of the whole creation is fulfilled. That's right. Serrano, you have your hand raised?
Oh, yeah. So I was going to say it felt like the substance that Hazrat Inayat Khan was talking about, like, does like sublimation, like goes into the next, phase, like a shift of phase or something like that through the different names in my and my breath is like the witness to it.
Yeah, thank you. Shakti.
I going through with the breaths and just feeling into each and tasting. I felt like a child, and then a life cycle of like, this is the cycle of life. That's how it feels, and practicing how to live, to know, that desire to know, then to have power and happiness and then peace. It's almost, it felt like a wave of the cycle of a lifetime.
Thank you. Rima, how are you doing? Well, I would say the basic title of the class is the Essential Teachings of Inayat Khan. So when I go through his teachings, I try to find things that I consider most essential. And this particular lesson, believe it or not, could be a lifetime study in itself. Yeah, Kalimi. I mean, okay.
It wasn't letting me unmute. Um, I'm reminded of something, and I don't remember who said it now. One of our Sufis that we've considered over the years, that you really don't understand anything until you've actually become what you're seeking to understand. And
That
like
was
I said, I can't.
That was Rumi.
Rumi. Okay, Thank you. So what happens when I recite, and today when we were reciting the various names, is I find myself that a state of being in relation to the name is engendered in me, in the sense of I can really recognize and distinguish between the various names. I feel becoming a state of peace and Salim, and an acute sense of awareness and perception in Alim, and high livingness. And it seems to me that the divine name is shining in a mirror in my heart and shining a reflection back to the to HIK, to the reality. And I think the other thing that comes immediately to mind is, I think there was something in one of our classes, is it's better to be the servant of a Lord than to be a Lord of a servant. And I'm feeling like that's the state that generally in practice as I feel.
Yeah, claiming. Adi.
Yes, I was impressed, interested um, with the what I call considerations. You know, the consideration of desire, of power, and just putting it in my own words. Reason being, I'm going to be doing a presentation at Unitarian Church in a few weeks, and that sounds like something that I want to include in that presentation. Those considerations. I also like the one you gave for happiness, um, Asa al Saida. So thank you for that, and thank you for this lesson on Hazrat Anaya Khan, because I will be including that in my presentation. So I have to update my PowerPoint now.
Sahira.
Yes, I found it really interesting that this is the teaching that you chose today, because I had just recently read this this teaching as far as the five different um, steps or whatever, and now I have the wazifas to go with them, and I feel like it's kind of a nudge to say, you know, pay attention to this, and this is something you need to work on right now. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Melissa. You need to unmute yourself, Melissa.
I was struck by Mersha's term, materialized part of the spirit. I just thought how poetic that was, and it just struck me as being very significant in that quote. And thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Salima. Oh, you have to unmute yourself, Salima.
I had a sense of musicality underneath the words. The music of Hazrat Inayat Khan and sort of the vibrations underlying the words. So that's all.
Thank you. Shahida.
Well, for me, what I noticed in being present to what was going on with the different, especially probably with Yahai, there were images of faces that came to my mind and also textures in my visual field. And that is what stands out to me most. And regarding what you read about Anayat Khan's passage there, I appreciate you reading it again. But what lingers with me is what he was saying about the good and the bad. And it leaves me to think about how that is that I took it to mean, and maybe this isn't right, I'd have to really look at it and study it, but good people and bad people, or our good aspects and our bad aspects, are all part of the purpose of life and moving toward the one. So I thought that was a really rich statement. So thank you.
Thank you. You know, every divine name has its opposite, which brings balance into existence. And we all have and as Annette kind of pointed out on Solwenson, whether an angelic predisposition, we come with certain specific qualities. And those qualities can be relatively easy for us to express because they're innate to our nature. But sometimes they need to be brought into balance. And if they're not, then things may not turn out exactly the way they could. On the other hand, I'm also aware of just the way nature has evolved. And it's evolved by exploring all kinds of possibilities and then finally deciding on certain forms. And some of those possibilities are, well, good and bad is something that's almost a cultural concept. Would have certainly a lion eating a zebra, the zebra would think that was bad. I think the lion would think it was good. In the human life, we can see people can have a strong sense of God, but a not so strong sense of Halim. And they become quite dominating. It's a divine name, it's a divine quality, but without its balancing counterpoints, things can come into a whole other realm. So that's where we are all, I think, learning as we go along. And I think we need to make mistakes to be able to learn. And whether they're good or bad, they're mistakes. I remember Einstein saying, mistakes, I pray for mistakes daily because all the great breakthroughs came from mistakes. So it's kind of a jumbled up response to this concept of good and bad. But yeah, it's like salt and pepper. And even what we consider good, the divine names, just as we're contemplating them, because we're contemplating them as qualities of God. We're not necessarily contemplating them as our qualities per se. And in that, when we have a great experience, we feel quite successful. We've done our meditation, we had a great experience. And then someone like Abakar Jelani comes along and says, even the light of the divine names is a veil over the divine essence or a veil over reality. Shakti.
I was gardening yesterday, and I put a new soaker hose down about 3 weeks ago, and I put a rock over the soaker hose to keep it steady. And lo and behold, this plant decided to grow around the rock, and it's like just this tiny little yellow flower, one perfectly little yellow flower, but it's got a kind of curve in it, and it in this reminded me this that life just has a desire to live, and it will grow. Sometimes it will grow around a rock to get to the light, and find a way to get there. So it just reminded me of that.
Sometimes it even grows through the rock. Well, I appreciate you joining. We will gather again the second Thursday of next month. Let us end with the supplication Icon gave us. Pour upon us thy love and thy light 7 times. Pour upon us thy love and thy light. 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 Pour upon us thy love. Thank you for being here, and God bless.